Hi, welcome to another episode of the Right Marketing Podcast. Today we have a very interesting topic. If you're tired of running ads with no results or very low conversions, then this podcast episode is for you. Okay, so we're gonna start very easy. We're gonna divide today's podcast in three very important sections, in my opinion. First, we're gonna go over three very simple Google Ads, LinkedIn, and also industry-specific strategies for you to generate leads, but also nurture leads, which is going to be the main area we want to focus. Then we want to go and understand how to fix low converting ads, because that's really where the secret is, right? And then lastly, I want to jump into the FAQs. So I did a little bit of research and I have a list of a bunch of questions that I found online. So I just want to go over those questions and make it a little bit more conversational with myself. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. So if you are thinking about running ads for Google, or if you've already done that and you had very poor results, and you felt that you just wasted money and it would have been easier to just flush down the toilet, thousands of dollars, then think about what did we did wrong or what did we fail to do when we were thinking about the strategy itself, right? So I want you to first ask yourself, did you have a map of your customer journey? That's question number one. If you didn't have a map of your customer journey, then take a step back, even one more, and ask yourself, do you even have an audience persona of your decision makers? Because the reality is that for business to business environments, you don't have one decision maker. You have multiple decision makers. And each one of them, they have different goals, different challenges, different pains, and in reality, different ways that they're going to be looking for your content. So once you have the map, you know exactly, okay, company B, I need we have three types of decision makers, and company A, I only have two decision makers, right? So we group them in this kind of let's call it levels, right? Like decision maker, the final one that says the yes. The one in the middle, that's the one that is filtering the vendors, right? So you need to make sure they like you too, so that you can make it to the last one. And then the first one, which is the gatekeeper, the one that's opening the door for you to even be in the whole race. So how do you prepare a strategy for each one of those levels, right? So like I mentioned, create your audience persona, then you have your map of your journey, and then we jump into putting together the strategy. So this is like the last step. Alrighty, so for Google Ads, I want you to focus on intent-based. As you can see, intent-based means basis on what are they trying to find. So because we know who the audience persona is, like who that decision maker and what level they are, we are going to know in kind of what is their intention for each one of those levels, right? So for the gatekeeper, their intention is to just basically bring the variety, right? Bring as many vendors so that the middle person, they can make a better decision on filtering them out, and then the last person makes the decision between the last two, right? So for that first level, you want to make sure that you're creating content that is more relatable to them. And that's where you are using also remarketing, because for the middle person and the last person, you want to make sure that when your name gets to them, they already know who you are, or they already heard your name. So there's some familiarity at any level of familiarity, because as you know, as your quote goes up on the type of decision makers, they're also moving in the journey of their buying process, right? So the first person is more on the awareness stage. They are also trying to consider kind of what the vendors are. Now, let me take a break here. All three of them go through the phases of the decision process, the buying decision process. However, not all of them end on a purchase, right? So for example, and let me clarify that. So a person that is a gatekeeper, their decision process, their entire goal, right, is for them to bring you to the table. to choose the right vendors to bring to the table so that they can look good to their boss, right? So for them, their buying process will be awareness. Okay, they landed them like, hey, we need to look vendors for this. So he's gonna do research a little bit on what kind of vendors will follow or fit that specific qualification or specifics that he received from upper management. So this is the awareness stage for that person. So the keywords that you're choosing have to match that intent, right? Then they're going to move in the consideration. So you need to be retargeting that person on the consideration stage, that you are the right vendor for them, that you can actually help them and clarify for this type of person. You need to clarify a little bit more on how you're going to be helping them, because they don't have too much clarity, right? So for them, it's a little bit more high level on how you're going to help them and solve the problem, right? Once he makes the decision that, yes, this is the vendor that I want to bring to the table, it ends for him. That's it. You basically converted for that person. Now you are on the next buying cycle for the middle person. So the middle person has a different intent, right? He's trying to disqualify you, right? So the first person was trying to qualify you, see if you meet the characteristics. The other person is trying to disqualify you. So for him, the awareness, consideration, and decision stage are going to be very different. He also has more at stake, right? So he cannot make a mistake because he needs to choose most likely 2 or 3 vendors to bring to the final, either the board to make the decision, or the final decision maker could be like the CEO, the president of the company, or God knows, right? So for him, he has more in the line to lose, right? So his pain is a little bit stronger than the first guy. So for him, the awareness stage, right, is not necessarily looking out online. And this is what I hear from a lot of B2B customers, because they come to me and they will tell me, Patricia, my customers are not looking for me online. Well, not the middleman and not the decision maker, but the first guy is, right? So you need to show up for that guy from zero. But for the middle guy, you need to show up in a way that is different, right? So for them, you want to start a LinkedIn strategy, right? So then you can start like a sequential messaging. You can run ads where you're talking about more about the product itself and how you make a difference. This is when case studies become crucial for this part of the strategy, because again, this middle management, they're trying to disqualify you, right? And usually the process that they go through is a little bit lengthy. That's why the sales cycles on B2B can be anywhere from, 6 months to 2 years, and sometimes even longer. So for you to be able to close that gap and make it, faster and easier, I wonder if this is okay. For them to make it faster and easier, to make the decision faster, you need to basically provide the information for them to keep you on the table, right? You don't want to get disqualified. So this is when it's also a good idea to look at all of your competition and find out all of their weaknesses so that you can make sure you show up as having those as strengths, okay? So after these two, for the last step, right? So once this goes to the final decision maker, this is when you want to be even more strategic on the type of ads that you are running. Because guess what? This person doesn't care if you're running a cute ad on Google, because first off, he's not going to be looking up he's not going to be looking at you at Google. On LinkedIn, he's not going to be responding your messages. He's too busy, right? Like running big meetings. So for this person, you want to make sure that you have industry-specific ads. Okay, this is when you want to make sure you have a good relationship with your associations, your trade organizations, or chambers of commerce, depending on your industry. Again, this is business to business, so you cannot be going on like flashy and running just a billboard on the middle of the road. No, you want to be on the place where they are. So these persons are usually going into panel discussions and events and specific networking places. So you want to show up there. And how do you show up there? You can show up there with native ads, right? So this is a little bit more about thought leadership as well. However, you are showing up as a subject matter expert, right? You're not just someone running an ad and talking about how great you did on that job last, month or whatever, but you are actually talking about how you are shifting and leading the industry for that specific service, right? So as you can see, when you layer your ads and you have a more global strategy, this is when you start seeing results. So my question to you is, have you tried a campaign where you are going through all of this sequence of ads and you're retargeting your specific target audience, where they are and where they are not only on their journey, but how they're consuming content? That's a good question. I want to hear it, or I want to see it on the comments as well. All right, so now that we know what's the strategy and we're running amazing ads and we're so happy with our ad campaign, how do we fix them if they're not working, right? There's 3 areas that I want you to look at, okay? Number 1 is, if you are not getting any impressions, right? Like, how do you fix that, right? Because impressions means that you're not even cutting through the noise, right? Like, nobody's even looking at your ad, right? So there's a lot of, that's the first place you want to look at. Then if you're getting the impressions but nobody's clicking on your ads, then how do you fix that? Because, like, great, you fix the first problem, right? Like, you're showing up, but now nobody's clicking. So where is the disconnection there? And then finally, if they actually click on your ads and they go to your landing page or your lead generation form, what happens then if they're not converting? How do you fix that there? Okay, so let's go one by one. If you have low impressions, that means that you need to be fixing your targeting and your budget, because that means that you're trying to either be everything for everybody, or you're being, usually when you're trying to be everything for everybody, you end up being no one for nobody, right? It's like you're trying to throw a pizza on the wall and see what sticks. So you want to make sure that you have your list specifically of the type of companies you want to target, and that you did your job with your audience persona and your customer journey mapping. Okay, so once you fix your targeting and your budget, because it may be that your budget is too small. Trust me, the problem is never that the budget is too large. It's usually the other way around. However, you can have a very large budget, but showing up on the wrong person, then it's not really worth it, right? So fix your targeting. That's how you fix your low impressions. Now, how do you fix your low clicks, right? This is when you are not connecting, okay? Typically, this is when you want to fix your messaging and your creative. However, I'm gonna ask you not to fix both at the same time, okay? And the same goes with the low impression as well. If you have low impressions, don't fix your targeting and your budget at the same time. Fix one of the things, because otherwise you're not gonna know which one really worked, right? Or you can work on 2 ads if you have the budget at the same time. So this is what A/B testing is called, right? So you can do one ad with a specific target audience and a specific, and the same budget as before, and then you run the other ad with the same audience as before, but a larger budget, right? And then you compare which one is giving you the impressions, and that's how you're gonna know where were you messing things up. Okay, and the same with the low clicks, right? So you don't want to change the messaging and the creative at the same time. Change the messaging first, then change the creative. Most of the time, if you're not getting impressions, I will go ahead and change the creative first, because that means the visual is not connecting with your audience, because it's either getting lost with the crowd, because remember, like, people are scrolling on LinkedIn or the ads itself. Like, this applies more on LinkedIn ads, I would say. With Google ads, it's a little bit different, because if you have display ads and they are not clicking, then I will go more with the creative than the actual messaging first, right? So, okay. So, and then lastly, we go with the conversions. Now, on the conversions, if you have low conversions, you need to basically fix either your landing page or the offer, right? So a lot of times the call to action is not strong enough for them to convert into a specific lead for you, or convert into whatever it is that you're trying to get, right? So if you're trying to go ahead and run one ad, and from that one ad expect them to sign up for a demo of your, let's say, software product, then you're going to fail miserably. You can have the impressions, you can get the clicks, but you're not going to get the conversions because your offer is too strong. It's kind of like too soon, right? It's like, imagine that you go on a first date and then you ask them to marry you right away on that first date. It's going to be too soon and you're going to get a no for sure. However, well, nowadays you never know, but probably most likely no. Okay, so you want to try to have your offer and your call to action based on their business or on their buying journey, right? So if they're on the awareness stage, it's going to be very different call to action than if they are already on the decision stage and they already know you and they have heard about you already, right? So keep that in mind. If this is the first time that you're running an ad or that you haven't run an ad in a long time, don't go straight to the decision as a call to action. Go a step back to either a conversion, download this case study or whatever, or even the awareness stage, check out this checklist or watch this video or something a little bit lighter. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to stop sharing. Let me go. And I want to make sure that we go over some of the questions that I have prepared, which is really quite interesting. All right. So one of the questions that I found, all right. Well, it's a very common question, right? So how do you measure the effectiveness of your B2B digital advertising campaign? Now, a lot of times when you're trying to decide what KPIs you want to choose for your campaign, you need to choose on what really matters for your business. And also, you need to choose them based on the stage of the buying cycle. Again, because for an awareness campaign, you cannot be tracking how many phone calls you got because it's only awareness, right? You're trying to get more impressions. So on that stage, it's not only the number of impressions, but in these platforms, you can actually see who's looking at your ads, especially on LinkedIn. You can actually look at how many people with a specific title is looking at your ads. So I would recommend that you make that your KPI. Like, for example, how many for CEOs and the percentage of CEOs versus business development that are looking at my ad, right? Because you do get a lot of business developers looking at your advertisements. So you want to make that your KPI. So basically what that means is that you are tracking the lead quality, right? The quality of the people looking at your advertisements. Now, and this lead quality is something that you can track throughout the entire journey, right? For the awareness, you're only going to look at the lead quality based on their title of their jobs, right? Then when they move to the conversion, you're going to check the lead quality based on the people that is actually downloading or signing up to a webinar or whatever it is on that consideration stage. And then on the decision, of course, the lead quality of the people that actually sign up for the demo or book the appointment, right? You want to make sure that they are closer to your type of ideal customer. Now, another way of tracking the success of your advertising campaign is tracking how much it reduces your sales cycle length. And whenever we're working with our customers, that's what we really put our eyes into. Because the first question is like, okay, right now, what's the average on how long it takes you to close this type of customers, right? Because remember, we start with the audience persona, and each type of audience persona have a different sales cycle. So our goal is to monitor how long it takes for them to move through the funnel. The goal in marketing is to close that gap and close that sales cycle as fast as possible so that they can become a customer quicker. And then lastly, of course, you want to track the return on your investment. After all, this is the Right Marketing Podcast, and we want to track the ROI. ROI is everything in marketing, and one of the biggest reasons why people don't invest in marketing is because they don't know how to track the ROI. So you want to truly calculate how much revenue you are generating from that specific ad campaign. Okay, and for each business, it's going to be different. So unfortunately, I can't just give you a generic answer, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, how many dollars you spent and how many became a customer. But when you have a 2-year cycle, it becomes very easy to get that number, lost. So you want to make sure that you have an ROI for each section, for each one of those audience personas, okay? All right, so then another question I found here is LinkedIn advertising effective for B2B marketing? Yes, if you're not advertising on LinkedIn, I don't know where you'll be able to get the amount of precise targeting. Because on LinkedIn, you can target based on job titles, company names. You can even upload a list of your specific targets, right? Like let's say, okay, this year we're targeting these 50 companies. Because again, in business to business, you're not trying to go to everybody. And especially if you are in the oil and gas industry or even healthcare, or if you have a specific manufacturing that are targeting distributors, right? You don't want to be focusing on consumers or just everybody. You want to just show up for those specific numbers of companies that are out there. And you can also target, of course, based on geographic location. So it's very easy to reach decision makers using LinkedIn. However, it's more expensive. Okay, that's the reality. LinkedIn is more expensive, but also LinkedIn gives you less conversion, so it's a little bit more tricky. You need to truly, that's why I wanted to show you the type of strategies, because you don't want to be trying like a broad campaign on LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you are targeting that middle decision maker, somebody that's already in the consideration, the one that is filtering them out, right? Okay. How can I ensure my ads resonate with multiple stakeholders in the B2B purchase decision? I think that's what we kind of like discussed today. However, the one thing I didn't mention is that in those different levels, they have different technical level, right? Like a person that is on the lower, is trying to get as many vendors, he doesn't have as much technical knowledge as somebody probably in the middle stage. And then the last one, he may have the technical knowledge, but he has more of the financial knowledge as well of the company and the productivity. So you need to emphasize more of the cost effectiveness in ROI for that person, but for the person at the bottom, you want to highlight more of the usability, more of the support, more of how you help other companies. And the person in the middle, that's when you really want to highlight your product capabilities and benefits. And that's where you showcase all your engineering background, and you really show all that technical knowledge for that middleman. Because what happened is that middle, again, is trying to filter you out, right? So it's trying to really see if you have the background and the technical knowledge to be able to help them. All right, what role does content marketing play in shortening B2B sales cycle? So I think it's truly important to focus on two things when you are thinking about running an ad campaign. Number one is you need to educate your prospects. Educate them that you are someone that, number one, knows what they're doing. Hopefully you are the right match for them, because in B2B, not every customer is the right match for your type of business, right? So you want to educate your prospect as much as possible. And then you also want to nurture your prospects. So nurturing, it sounds kind of like the same, right? You're educating, you're nurturing. But with nurturing, you are trying to really help them move through the sales funnel for them. So you are helping them make quicker decisions, right? So you're providing the information instead of them digging in too much and getting lost on your probably overly complicated website. You want to provide that information and make it easy for them. That's why video marketing is becoming more and more used. It's a tactic that is more used throughout business to business, because it's easy to showcase case studies. What it used to be white papers, now you can do videos, and you can also create explainer videos. So we've been doing a lot of explainer videos for our customers as well. Webinars like this one, and like podcasts like this one as well, are also becoming more and more popular because it's offering a different way of sharing knowledge, and that you have the knowledge, right, for people to realize, oh wait, I have that problem, this person is talking about it, let me reach out to them, right? All right. Oh, this is a really good question. How do I align my sales and marketing teams? And we're going to end with this question. How do I align my sales and marketing teams to improve digital advertising outcomes? I'm so happy somebody is thinking about how to integrate sales and marketing, because most of the time they work in different silos. Like it's like in one corner you have sales, in the other corner you have marketing, and let's see who wins, right? We want to bring them close together. We want them to sit on the same table and have the same discussion. So there's alignment in both of them, right? We want to share the same goals. One of the first questions, and typically when we engage with our clients, the first question is like, okay, what's your goal? Typically they will say something, oh, I think we need more awareness, or we need to send a newsletter, or we need social media. I'm like, okay, that's great, that we want to do that, but what's the goal? Why am I going to be sending that newsletter? Also, that we can get more customers. Okay, how much? Let's talk numbers, because I need to know exactly what the sales team is trying to accomplish, what are the struggles they're having, where are the gaps, so that we are able to share the objectives, share the KPIs, and truly move the needle at the end of the day, right? Be able to get closer to that goal specifically. Okay. Another thing that I want you to think when you're thinking about integrating sales and marketing is, I want you to also look at them to be kind of like your counsel, right? So they can actually look at the ads, and I know as a marketer, sometimes it's kind of tricky to ask the sales team to be like, hey, look at this ad and tell me, what do you think? But I think it's really important that you do that, because the sales team is the one facing the customer constantly, and they are the ones hearing the complaints, right? Because a lot of times marketing falls in the mistake of using technical words that are not necessarily the same words that the client is using, right? So I remember one time with one customer, one of the things that they will say, like, they were a distributor for phalanges, right? And they couldn't understand, the salespeople, they couldn't understand how can they get more clients. And they were like very like confused, because they were running ads, but they were getting these small like orders. So they were not getting the large orders that they usually work with, right? So when I was asking them, when a customer calls you, what's the first thing they say to you? And they tell me, oh yeah, the first thing is like, hey, can you send me, one pallet or whatever of this specific product today, right? And I was like, oh, so you are able to quote them within 24 hours and even ship the product within 24 hours. And they were like, oh yeah. But for them, it was the most normal thing, right? But as a marketer, I can see that, wait, no one, like your competition, nobody's talking about 24 like delivery or quotation, not even. And then on top of that, they were open 7 days a week. So guess what was going to be our UVP, our unique value proposition? It was 24/7, order today, get it today. And they were able to not only like 10x their sales, but they were able to position themselves like that type of provider that is reliable and that is able to provide quick results. That was only accomplished because we were able to listen to the customer, because we had that one-on-one with the sales team. Okay, so as a marketer, it's important that we align the messaging, we align the objectives with the sales team as well. And I think that's all for today. That's a wrap up. So today it was a quite interesting topic. We talked about Google Ads, LinkedIn strategies, and also native ad campaigns. We also discussed how to fix the ads, because it's one thing to run the ad campaigns and have a beautiful copy and creative, but if it's not generating results, it's not worth it. So how do we fix those ads? We focus on 3 areas: impressions, clicks, and conversions. And then we jump into frequently asked questions. If you have more questions, make sure you put them in the comments. I read all the comments and I'll be happy to answer and see you there. Alrighty, until next time, thank you so much. Bye.